Yo, it's Bogue. Welcome back to KSP. Today's video is exciting. We're sitting down with the team behind one of the newest and coolest planet pack mods for Kerbal Space Program, Kerbal Star Systems 2. Whether you're a veteran KSP player or just dipping your toes into the worlds of planet mods, you're going to enjoy hearing what goes into building entire star systems from the ground up. I'm Bogue, a KSP creator. A big goal of mine is to demystify KSP mods and show what's possible, because let's be real, many of these mods have become essential to the best KSP experience in 2025. Sitting with me today is Spaceman and the Spacepotato, both developers on the KSS2 team. Thanks for being here, guys.
No problem.
Yeah, thanks.
Can you guys give us a quick introduction to yourselves and the team, what KSS2 is, and your role in making it all happen?
KSS2 is a Interstellar mod for KSP, primarily focused on expanding the just local star systems, but my role in specific is I do Firefly and a lot of game testing. I'm gonna try to get into writing science devs eventually, but for now it's just upper atmospheric, mainly ideas.
Been enjoying seeing your work, especially with the star re-entry effects.
Those are just a last minute idea. I started with Ethero and I decided to do that because it was like the only star you could get really close to, but I'm working on stuff for the Pulsar at the moment, actually.
Yeah, I've been working on this mod since mentioned earlier, 2017, working on Kerbal Star Systems 1, Galaxies Unbound, and now Kerbal Star Systems 2. I used to do mostly the science devs and the descriptions, but now I focus a lot more on details such as the clouds and a lot of the parallax continued support.
So let's get into the core of what makes KSS2 tick. I've always had an interest in watching people do planet mods, but what goes into making a planet in a KSP mod?
So SC said it's a lot of work, but it all starts out with coming up with a concept, which we'll usually discuss in the development channel for a while. If it's like a re-emerging planet we've already done in KSS1 or GU, then we'll definitely use that as inspiration. But I mean, some objects during the stock revamp talks we've been a lot more open to newer ideas. And then the next part is if it fits into the system we're putting it in. So each system, at least I feel, is designed to feel it's as its own. And we just got to make sure the planet fits in, whether that be composition, whether that be size, or even just atmosphere, how it behaves in the system. But its unique features, which comes next, and those things, gravity, atmosphere, terrain, style. The goal is to make each planet feel distinct. Nothing like Kerbin, I mean, with the exception of Pandora, but each object should feel like its own. And then the mock-ups happen after that, so it takes a good amount of time, whether that be textures, clouds, even some of my re-entries or parallax. When wherever we're doing it takes a long time. Blalo is actually a good example of this. It's been reworked so many times, even behind the scenes. But it's just, I mean, some objects have been made under an hour, as he said, but others take literal weeks to months. But once the core idea is solid, texture creation, height maps, color maps, details, all that gets done, then we bring it to life using the Copernicus mod, and then visual effects come in. We have the clouds and visuals and parallax stuff that you see the Spacepotato work on, and then you have some of the other more minor visuals like Firefly that I spend days working on. So it's definitely, and yeah, some planets are just incredibly quick. They're just, okay, we need an asteroid moon around so-and-so's object, so boom, done. But others are a very tough fight to get done, but it's a satisfying process to end off.
You got pretty much most of it. I'd say, yeah, the real difference for making a planet is, I'd say the two hardest parts are actually figuring out what we want to put there and then actually doing the details. I think Starcrusher's gotten so good at actually making the textures. There will come in times where it's just like, hey, I made this new planet. Oh, okay.
Completely random. Yeah, that happened with that one new moon of Eoris, but
he's always got an idea in mind, and a lot of times the idea changes. Nova Kerbani has been reworked I can't think of how many times it's been reworked, but
Yeah, I've been really looking forward to these new systems coming out. The Nova K system, super awesome. Also love the Corman 16 system. That was the first time I ever saw a brown dwarf that looked like that, so that's super awesome. But yeah, there's been so much added that I'm so excited about. Pandora especially. I know opinions are sometimes mixed on Habitable Worlds, but I think the Avatar 3 trailer is going to be coming out soon, and there's going to be a lot of interest in that. I'm maybe aiming to do my own mission to Pandora and have that video maybe dropping around this December when the movie comes out. I've always wanted to try making a planet mod myself. I've seen some really interesting tutorials. They're usually like sped up to like 10x speed. What are your guys' like recommendations for people who might want to like start trying out making their own for themselves?
For those who are fine with getting like everything done on their own, I mean, the wiki on the Copernicus GitHub was incredibly useful in its early days, and the Copernicus server has definitely proved helpful for me in creation. But I mean, the important thing is you create your own style, you create your own workflow. But I'd start small if you were going to try anything. When I made my first planet, like just randomly, I was bored, I added it to the Kerbal system, and it was just an asteroid that I just put in orbit around Eve. But just start small, and if you want to work your way up to like the Eve and the scatter and the parallax and all that stuff, then by all means, there's people that can help you out with that too.
I guess I could add some questions on that. So Blalo was the new Blalo edition was like the first time that I saw like truly massive parallax scatters added, you know, like these big kind of like buttes or rock formations that have like full collision. And I was like, oh man, is this going to like impact performance? But no, it's actually the number of scatters, right, that has the impact on performance, not necessarily the size. Is that correct?
I think it's the number of vertices that really impacts it.
What I've noticed is if this was done in its original state as when I started here, at least, we were in the process of transferring Parallax 2 to Parallax Continued, and what a journey that was. If this was done in Parallax 2 still, the lag would be pretty bad, because Parallax 2, it got like outdated fast, but Parallax Continues performance-based, which I appreciate, especially as someone who came from humble beginnings on a 7-year-old's laptop.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's funny. We always recommend like the full suite of visual mods. Someone's like, can I run this on a 20-year-old potato? Or like, no.
Yeah.
You can't. But it's a lot better than it used to be.
Take it from an ex-GTX 1650 user. Your computer will explode the moment you boot up volumetric clouds.
I just got done recently showing off the newest update, 3.0.5. Something that I'm interested in learning about is like how you guys have a strategy to balance like an exotic interstellar experience with realism. So like what is your strategies, what are your inspirations for coming up with these alien worlds?
Especially when I made the re-entries for the stars, there's not much data on that, so you kind of gotta just assume what it would be like. But you can always think, like, when things get really hot, they go white or yellow or red. But for the brown dwarfs, because they tend to shift in temperature around them, I came up with this idea. It's like, okay, well, what if we have multiple colors of the light spectrum in the re-entry of this? And that's why you see on the Corman objects, there's these, like, sometimes you'll be re-entering, it'll be primarily white and red, but then you'll see these sparks of green or blue or yellow or purple come out sometimes. And they're not very bright, but they're definitely there.
Yeah, and then in the most recent update, there's starting to be like foundational lore being set for the mod, which some people have commented that's really interesting. I don't know if you guys can touch on too much of it, if it's like spoilers or anything like that, but what is like the internal logic that kind of connects the KSS2 planets? I know that there's kind of two categories of star systems. One's like systems that are based on real systems near the Earth, sun system, like Nova Kerbani is an analog to Alpha Centauri. Orman 16 is analogous to Lumen 16. The Sirio system for Sirius. Other systems, however, those are completely fictional, kind of like imagination elements to the mod, right?
Kerr is loosely based, besides the objects around it, of course, loosely based off Sagittarius A. That's a good aspect of why it has such a far distance out from everything else. Is people argue that, Aethera doesn't have a direct analog, but it's taken inspiration from the Trapsit and Bernard star systems. But I don't know the Leith pulsar analog.
Isn't that analogous to Lich?
Yes, I think it's Lich.
It was a pulsar where we actually had discovered terrestrial planets around it in exoplanetary astronomy. But you had also mentioned that you guys are working on your stock revamps of the Kerbal system, including the Kerbal Outer Worlds expansion, which is kind of like the KSS2 approach to the OPM and MPE concept. One question that I have is that going to be taking the next update, or is the Lich system going to be next?
We did run a poll a while back on what we wanted first, and it was like expanded Sirio system, expanded Lich, or Leith, but expanded Stock and Kerbal Outer Worlds. But the next release is most likely just going to be all the particle stuff we've been working with, because we don't want to gatekeep that for too long. But Kerbal Outer Worlds and the stock revamp are definitely up there because those got the majority of the vote. They were actually incredibly close, so much in fact that we were considering, and still are considering, having them be part of one conjoined Kerbal system update.
Yeah.
But I mean, as for Leith, Leith has been in the KSS2 files for an incredibly long time. Like, Tide wasn't even added, and Leith and Kerr were both in KSS2's files. So, I mean, it's good that Leith is finally getting what it deserves. So,
as far as like the system designing goes, I know with KSS1 it was mostly fictional. I mean, there were real world analogs such as Tarsus 1, which was the analog of the Trappist 1 system. With Galaxies Unbound, it was a lot more focused on real-world analogs. Pretty much every star in there was something you could find in real life. And I think for this one, we wanted to be a little bit more fictional. It allows you to be a little more creative, because then you design a planet and you have some scientific study come back 3 months after you finish the system saying, hey, this planet doesn't actually exist.
It's explainable to people, like, this star is kind of it's its own Kerbal thing, but it is roughly analogous in position and makeup star-wise to these actual stars that, I guess if you're in the southern hemisphere, you could look up and see.
With Aethera, I remember when we were first conceptualizing it, everyone's like, oh, let's make an interstellar pack and have some real-world analogs. Well, let's start with Alpha Centauri or something. And we were thinking, let's try something a little different, something a little closer, something a little easier. Although it does have its own challenges, its own unique regard.
In that it's a smaller system, like Aethera being a smaller star, and the planets orbiting kind of in a similar vicinity that are pretty close to the star. And then its distance, which I guess if you're counting the Kerbal light year kind of scale, it's at 2.55 Kerbal light years away, which is closer than any star to the sun in real life. I like that it kind of is this stepping stone system to the other star systems. But you're right, it does have its own challenges. I've been working on building my landers. What I'm planning on doing when I do my series to the Aethera system, I have an entire ISV vehicle designed, and I'm going to be taking all the landers. So like, we're only going in one trip, but we're bringing all the landers with us. So I've been designing landers for all the planets, and several of the a large amount of the planets actually have I would say more difficult than average difficulties than anything in the Kerbal system. So I think the difficulty is really well scaled there, a balance between like a new star system with a challenge to get you ready for the further distances to come. For example, like Glacian has really high gravity. I was struggling last week to design a lander, but I finally got it to work with a nuclear saltwater engine. So hopefully my Kerbals pack, I don't know, some sort of sunscreen so they don't die from radiation.
Yeah, we've definitely considered scaling. Like, if you're at the ability where you can go interstellar, you can worry about more difficult challenges with it.
the adjustable nature of the mod as well, like the habitable world setting. You guys have Pandor and Blalo, which can be enabled or disabled, which I think is a really unique feature for gamers to customize their approach to KSP, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's definitely good that we have customizability at the forefront of the mod, because I feel at least that if there's an object in a system that someone doesn't like or never gonna visit, they should have the option to not have it and or not have the system at all. Like, I know a lot of people don't install the Sirius system as of the moment. It doesn't have any planets.
And you guys mentioned the particle effects that you guys have been working on. That's super interesting.
Oh, yes.
I've been watching the previews of the sun flare effects. I guess that's scale decorator as well. But like one thing that's really cool about KSS2 is that you've been working on these things that I haven't seen before in other mods, like particle effects from orbit, and the scale decorator effects, like the things related to the all, kind of like the haze around it.
To my knowledge, and obviously I could be wrong since I'm not paying attention to other mods on what they're doing, but there's a few things I've done that I haven't seen elsewhere, notably the meteor showers that I added.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen those anywhere, and as someone who is entwined with the other Planet Pack mods, no, I don't really see meteorites anywhere. The dynamicness that this new mod has added is incredibly useful in creating these new amazing objects and even revamping some of the older ones that haven't been touched.
One thing that I was really impressed with was, you mentioned kind of like a dynamic nature trying to be added to these systems, was the cyclical weather patterns on Tesher that change in relation to its position in orbit around Aethera, which I think is super innovative. I think that's awesome.
It's definitely a very interesting. Having dynamic weather with volumetric clouds is something I never thought I would see out of it, but like obviously when BlackRock announced, oh, we have rain clouds and these thunderstorms, I was never going to think that they could be seasonal driven, but here we are.
Yeah, I remember Starcrusher figured out, I mean, you could just time the orbit to have seasonal weather patterns. He first did that with Tesher, copied it to Glacian. I've been using it for regular rain, and I use it for the meteor showers too, so you won't find those the entire year, only at certain times of the year. Yeah, we've taken advantage of that as much as we can.
So were there any features in KSS2 that made you ask, like, can the KSP engine even handle this? Or like, what were some of the biggest technical hurdles that you've had to solve? And what's it like working through a bug or some sort of roadblock where it's like, maybe this isn't even possible to add?
My first encounter with that was after I finished all the system re-entries and I started working on stars. That was, I was like, okay, well, I've never made a star in KSP, and I do not know if they have atmospheres in the sense that the planets do, which they don't, but something was eventually worked out. What ended up happening is I was like, can this even be handled? So I wrote a config for Aethera as a test. It was just a copy of my Kerbal config. It worked there, then I made a Nova Kerbani A and B one, but those didn't work because those two stars, their quote-unquote atmosphere were underneath its texture, so we had to adjust that for them to be higher up. But I mean, there's other objects that I've thought the same way, like Leith, as I said, I'm working on, but there's no point in working on it for, like, I've been asked, oh, you gotta do curves, like you don't get re-entries on a black hole.
Yeah.
You could get something if you're passing through north to south through the accretion disk, but again, we don't even know if that's something the KSP engine can handle, which would be, I mean, if BlackRock gets oblate atmospheres in Eve, which I know has been a recommended feature, then that would open up those kind of windows, which would be amazing to have access to. The most bugs I think I've ever encountered was starting out that, because the Spacepotato posts something one day saying, here are some experimental configs for Nova Kerbani, and I open it, and all of the objects are pitch black and don't have surfaces and don't function. And Alva home switch, which was at the time still functional, was completely broken. Whoa, what are we even meant to do here? Over the next few months, decided, okay, well, we gotta remove home switch, and that is the only thing that has proven difficult in terms of parallax. Then there was, after that, we actually had issues with habitability options on certain objects. Because Pandora was easy because it was toggleable. Well, I don't want to say easy, but it was functional. The Proxima B analog, we still have to solve. So, but yeah, I'm not obviously the main parallax dev, so Spacepotato, if you would like to continue.
Struggled a little more with Parallax Continued than Parallax 2, mostly just because I'm just learning all this as I go. I know there's like a little bit of documentation and a lot of it helps, and there's some questions I don't have answers to, and I just poke around with it until I figure it out. I think I might have actually found a fix for Alva's home switch though. Whatever is going on with habitable Proxima B, I got no idea.
Module manager patches seem pretty ineffective with Parallax Continued so far, so.
Interesting.
Yeah, we had to get rid of Scaled because it would turn the surfaces of planets black. Starcrusher was like, we don't need it anyways.
Yeah. Well, it was between that and Parallax 2 being supported instead, and...
You can't do that. No, not anymore.
Not anymore.
Now I'd like to talk about inspiration. So like I take a lot of inspiration for like my spacecraft and my missions from like science fiction or astronomy. I kind of follow exoplanet research. I love YouTube as a community for that. So like what kind of things have inspired you guys with Kerbal Space Program in general? Are there like books, movies, games, or kind of certain topics in space astronomy that have maybe influenced your work?
I mean, inspiration-wise, Pandora is clearly based in Avatar. I've heard Starcrusher talk about how some of the other objects were based in like stuff from like Star Wars or stuff like that. I've been very keen to get work on the Sirius system done because I really am annoyed with the fact that it was released empty. We were looking into the possibility of worlds, and well, Sirius B is dead, so you can't really have any major objects, but I looked into second generation formation, which is the concept of when the star's outer layers emerge off of Sirius B, the helium in specific could settle on large or decently sized core worlds around, and you have these almost hazy helium gas dwarf worlds that would be possible around Sirius A, and more or less Sirius B would have literally nothing. But when we were talking about the stock Kerbal revamp, I was like, well, I want to make the Mun more unique. And what better to look at the Mun in is media for that kind of stuff. So I was personally talking about I want more flat terrain because I want surface bases to be more accessible on the Mun. And one of the real things I wanted is, this was direct inspiration from For All Mankind, Shackleton Crater.
Yeah.
That would have almost the ability to have the same way it works in the show with, you could put some rational resource deposits in the bottom of it or whatever. Just a nice area to set up base. Because I, for one, always try to put my Mun bases around craters, especially around the poles. But the terrain is always so bumpy around them.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's been inspiration.
Very cool. I love For All Mankind.
Woo! Just waiting for season 5.
I know for surfaces, he always sends me the files of a planet and then a couple pictures of someone's fictional planet surface idea and says, I kind of want this vibe. You mentioned Blalo a while ago. He sent me, I think it was a screenshot from Helldivers. And he's always wanted the rocky world with the big cliffs and everything. He originally wanted that for Tesher, but I couldn't figure out how to do that well. And I figured it out for Blalo, so I might do that with Tesher again.
Spaceman, you were talking about second generation formation around Sirius. I'm interested to see what you guys do, because that's a really interesting case of how can we even make this realistic for a situation in space where planets would be difficult to form.
I was gonna say, I remember in Galaxies Unbound, because we did do a Sirius system for that one, and the idea was they were all second generation planets. They were all still fairly young and interesting. I know Starcrusher didn't want any life in that system.
Yeah,
speaking of Starcrusher, he says hi, and Bogue, he thanks you for doing the videos on his mod.
No problem, it's been fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing real missions out to them, because not a lot of people do modded interstellar missions.
There's just so much planning that goes into an interstellar mission versus a normal mission. So I've been working on the interstellar vehicle. I got that pretty down. And then I had to work on the landers. Then I had to work on how can all the landers fit onto the vehicle. Then I had to work on making sure that the vehicle doesn't explode from losing its antimatter containment. So some people have been doing some really great interstellar vehicle design tutorials. like Yagate on YouTube. He does some really great tutorials that I've been enjoying. I think I also want to do one because there's some things that I've noticed.
Yeah, something I will ask you. Are you going to check out the Anomalies?
Yeah, I'll definitely be planning my like landing sites next to those on every, planet or moon that I'm going to. So I'm going to try to aim to showcase all of those.
In Aethera, there are 3 planets, or I guess 3 celestial bodies with unique stuff on the surface. Technically, there's not like an official storyline. When we did Kerbal Star Systems 1, the original plan was to have like a full storyline. We were going to have a custom science part that you could take to different planets. The idea was that there would be these black pyramids on certain planets, and if you scanned in that area with the science part, and you'd get like a piece of a story. We pretty much abandoned that with KSS1, and now it's kind of like we have half a storyline.
Yeah.
Like there's kind of a story there, but we have sort of a headcanon that we just kind of implement into the game.
Not many of you people work with like doing certain Planet Pack mods, and I'm infinitely appreciative that you decided to make your channel based around these Planet Packs. I mean,
yeah, like I was playing KSP for a long time, never did any Planet Packs. I found out about OPM and I saw Tecto and I was like, oh man, I have to go there. I discovered this whole OPM thing, and not, even OPM is very popular, but like from my perspective at that time, I'm like, I have no idea how this isn't like just basically stock. Like, why doesn't everyone have this? And no one was doing videos on it, so that's definitely the niche that my channel has filled, because there's so much more to KSP once you open yourself up to Planet Packs. On this topic, like, are there any other Planet Packs not related to KSS2 that you guys are fans of, that you guys are interested in checking out?
Proxima's Planet Pack. Celestial Harmony, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think like some of my other favorite Planet Packs, I already mentioned Kerbal, but Minor Planets expansion, that wasn't like very commonly used before I mentioned that I was...
Really underrated.
Yeah, I actually got in touch with Exo's Lab, the creator of MPE, once I was like doing videos on it, and he was like, yo, thank you for like showing my mod. We got to talking about like adding scatterer support to like Ervo, for instance, and I think I kind of inspired like the newest update for MPE, which I was able to show in my series. So, and I've been starting to have this impact on the mod scene, which is really cool. Like now creators are starting to create updates for mods if I show interest in them. Like for example, Kerbal Hub, he did the Cylan mod, which kind of adds like a Planet 9 analog, something that I'm excited about. It didn't have volumetric or parallax support, but I reached out to him. I'm like, yo, I'd really love to do a Planet 9 video. And he's like, yo, yeah, I'll work on updating it. So it's been really cool that I've not only been able to like show off these Planet Packs, but like have some sort of influence in keeping KSP alive, which is really cool.
I'm sure every mod maker appreciates when someone does a video on their mod.
Last question, what's one unreleased feature you're most excited for that we might have not already discussed?
Our idea for Moho. Not really much to do besides, it's the Mohole, but, so my idea was we take slight inspiration from Mercury, but we make it an exposed core world in the slightest, where these deep impact craters from the solar system's earliest days of formation show part of its exposed core, which we could put large amounts of metals in with the help of rational resources.
I can't confirm if this is gonna be added in, but I've been pushing hard for a new Rilna. In the KSS1 days, it was a Ice Age world with like an equatorial ocean.
That's the one that I voted for in the newest planet vote. Is that in a new star system?
That would probably go in Helion.
Definitely been pushing for a Polaris system, and Polaris, it's actually little known. Polaris is a triple star system. Polaris A, Polaris B, and Polaris AB.
I'd love to see a Betelgeuse analog come to KSS2, because there's not any red giants currently. That'd be really cool to see.
We'll probably have a planet around Leaf. I know in Galaxies Abound, there were like the 3 analogs of the real-life Lich system.
I'm interested to know what distance will the Leaf system be at.
I was originally pitching for it to be around Kerr.
With Kerr being like the center of the KSS2 galaxy or star cluster, is that kind of the radius of what KSS2 will eventually turn into? Like maybe there'll be planets even past Kerr, but Kerr is kind of going to be the center of it all, right? Is that correct?
The idea we've always had is like the further away you get away from Kerbin, the more exotic the place should be.
Yes.
That way, the more rewarding the places you visit are.
I agree.
Which is why, you can't get more exotic than the stuff around Kerr.
For sure.
It doesn't get any more exotic.
That's going to be about it for today, guys. But yeah, KSS2 just dropped version 3.0.5. So if you haven't checked it out, now's a great time. Also, join the KSS2 Discord to stay up to date on this mod's development, where you can also vote on new features that we've discussed, be part of the community. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.